Namaste.
What do you think is missing in our current education system?
Well, different people have different perspectives about education. Most people link education with a degree certificate. Students come to institutions like this, IIT Madras, so that they get the IIT degree, B.Tech, M.Tech, MS, PhD, MA, whatever. The degree is a passport for a good material future. So today's education is largely limited to providing a means for a livelihood, for a future, for a better standard of living. And that is not the real purpose of education. If you look at the history of students who complete their education, professional education or education in arts and science colleges, you would probably realize that more than 90–95% of what they've painfully studied to graduate, to pass, is hardly used in their subsequent career. The challenges that they face in their jobs, in their personal lives, are completely different. So perhaps if we could include that little extra, well, it's not a little extra, it's a big extra, to make education more holistic, it would provide for a more fuller education. We've tried to fill in that gap to some extent here at IIT Madras for a few students by offering a couple of courses. And the good news, the feedback from our students is that they find that whatever they've learned in these few courses is something that they kind of apply every day in their lives. So what is missing in today's education is its extraordinary focus on learning a few topics, that too theoretically, a lack of emphasis on physical education, on keeping the body fit, a lack of understanding of the parts of the individual being that govern one's life, the inability to understand one's impulses, one's desires, one's ambitions, one's emotions, and a not sufficiently rigorous mental education, and above all, the complete absence of spiritual education. So, education could be a lot better. And if you look at the place where we are sitting, we're sitting under a banyan tree and we've held classes out here. In this country, in India, education used to be conducted in such ambiences, in similar forests. IIT Madras is in a forest. We used to call that the Gurukula system, forest academy. And the students who attend the Guru's classes were not those who could pay money and get in. You have to be a deserving candidate, you have to be an adhikari, and you can learn at your own pace. So it's not a kind of production, just like we produce machines and matchboxes. You can't produce students like that. That's not education. So we had a system where inner development was core. Developing the character, having values was core. And other topics like civil engineering, etc. were at best electives. So what's missing in today's education? We have thrown out the core and we've given too much importance to the electives. And if you take the best universities in the world, they were here in India. They were much bigger than the IITs. You had universities at Takshashila, and they were international, truly international. It was not easy to get admission. At Malanda, everywhere students came here to first understand life, to understand what their role was in this beautiful world, how to discover one's true self, how to contribute to the well-being of the universe. That was primary. So wouldn't you say that we could do with a little bit of that in today's education?
Professor Menon, isn't it true that religions have caused much strife in the world? Don't we want people to drop their superstitions and be more scientific?
Very true. I couldn't agree more with you. You'll find that everywhere in life we must learn to discriminate between form and essence. Essence is the core, the sat. In Sanskrit we use the word sat. The core sat has to be conveyed through some means, some medium, and that's the form. You'll find that almost everywhere, with time, the core gets lost and all the rituals associated with the form gain importance. And the same has happened with religions. If you just look at this ambience, we're sitting under a banyan tree. This is a sacred ambience. To feel its sacredness, its serenity, its peace, the underlying joy, the vast expanse, the natural ambience, the leaves, the birds, the bees. There are no divisions here. Spirit is like that. But when you cast it in rigid forms, in dogmas, and you bring in divisions, and you bring in separations, and you fight between my religion and your religion, my God and your God, and my means of worship and what I eat and what you should also be eating and doing, then we run into strife, we run into problems. So there's a place for identification, there's a place for form, there's a place for ritual, but if you lose the spirit in the process of adhering to the form or worshipping the form, if you become a fundamentalist, and if you can't connect with the larger purpose and well-being of the universe, see, you can hear the birds are listening to what we say, and they have a place in this. You'll find that we must always have that background context in anything that we do. So if we zoom in too much and we react too much to things that we don't like, be they religious or otherwise, we're really not being spiritual, we're not being human, we're not being what we are potentially capable of being. And so if you take the traditions that came from this country, where so many religions are coexisting, the fundamental need was to welcome all and to have a sense of harmony. And you'll find that in every religion, right at the top, you have mystics who have really understood the essence of their religion. And it doesn't matter which religion. And there you see love and harmony, peace, and what is referred to in the Gita as Loka Sangraham. In fact, in the Indian tradition, they have a beautiful concept, Vasudhaiva Kutumbukam. This whole world, this whole universe is one family. So if you can keep that core intact and never lose it, then you will find that the strife doesn't exist. But the strife is there not just in religions. Strife is there in an inability to see the big picture, the reality. We are too self-centered, too narrow-minded, identifying with transient phenomena, not seeing the big picture. And so you have me, my family, my religion, my community, versus something that is not part of me. So the real conflict is between who I identify with and who I separate myself from. So that's the problem. And that's really not true religion, because religion is more about love. And love is the healing of separation, not accentuating the separation. So if you see the bigger picture, you'll find that religions have their place. And it is true that for most people, you do need rituals. It's a glue which holds people at the lower level. You know, they find themselves uplifted if they go to churches and temples and mosques, because they don't find that divinity at home or in the workplace. But if all that can change, and you can see a presence everywhere you go, then you will see that religions actually come in the way of experiencing that spirit. So that's why I prefer to use the word spirituality and not religion. Thank you.
What is the relevance of the Bhagavad Gita in the modern world?
That's a good question. We've heard so many things about so many scriptures. What is this Bhagavad Gita? Bhagavad Gita actually is a dialogue between two characters from the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata. It's a dialogue between Arjuna, the main protagonist, and Krishna. Did it really happen? I don't know. I know this for sure, that the Bhagavad Gita was written for me. And it has brought clarity to almost every major question that I face in my own life. Arjuna was confused in the battlefield at Kurukshetra. He didn't know what was the right thing to do. He didn't know his dharma. He, who was very self-actualized and accomplished as a warrior, wanted to run away because he suddenly realized the enormity of the action that was required of him. Many times in life, we also face similar situations. And we really don't know what's the right thing to do. If we could somehow know with a high degree of certitude that this is the way to go, then it would make a remarkable difference to our lives. But for that we have to admit that we don't know. Scientists often find that difficult. We don't know. In spirituality, we are all at kindergarten. You may hold a PhD, but you really don't know how to deal with your own family, how to bring up your own children, how to deal with your own spouse, how to handle your in-laws, how to handle your boss, how to deal with your colleagues, how to deal with your subordinates, how to deal with the environment. So the promise of the Gita is that not only will you come to know, and this is not theoretical knowledge, about what your life purpose is, but you'll also discover in the process, as you come to know yourself better and discover your true nature, your true self, your soul. The Gita uses 3 words. You discover Antah Sukham, that's an inner happiness. Most of us seek happiness in the world outside. We sometimes get it, most of the time we don't get it. We get what we don't want. But this is an inner happiness, an ananda, which is like hitting a perennial source of delight. That's the first thing you'll discover. The second is, the word used is antararama. There's an ease of being. And you see how stressful our daily lives are. We are actually suffering from a lack of ease. It's actually disease. So it's an inner journey we make to discover who we are. And the best part is the third aspect. The third aspect is called Antar Jyoti, which is an inner radiance, an inner guidance, which shows us the way, little by little, on this journey of life. And it's not a journey where we live in separation, in isolation. It's a journey that we travel in together. And that's how the Indian tradition, the famous mantra is Asato ma satkamaya. Lead me from asat, the unreal, the untruth, the transient, to sat, the true, the real, the pure existent. Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya. From darkness to enlightenment. Mrityor ma amritam gamaya. From death, depression, darkness, to the nectar of immortality. That's the promise of the Gita. Now, like other scriptures, there is a temporal aspect and there's a universal aspect. The temporal aspect is something that you need to relate to in the time in which the Gita came into being. So you have to understand people at that time, and we have not changed much. We'll see that the whole Mahabharata story, which goes back several thousand years ago, is being replayed every day today. The overall theme has not changed. But maybe the language used is quite different from our modern language. But there is something universal in the Gita. It's actually a divine teaching. Krishna plays a role of the divine teacher. And that's what's of value today. There are beautiful universal teachings which are applicable to people of all times and all places. And that's why the Gita is very relevant today. The only problem is we don't have people who've really understood the depth of this teaching and know how to translate it in the modern world, in a modern context, in this world that we live in. And I think that's the real challenge.